A tragic accident changed the course of his life forever. For most, it would have begun a life of discontent and wallowing around in self-misery. For Jonathan Nadeau, it kickstarted a new chapter of inspiration and appreciation. Even though he lost his sight permanently, he gained a passion to put creativity first in all areas of his life. And now, he wants to encourage you to do the same. There are times when you'll be faced with a choice. Be crushed by the weight of the situation, or use the fresh start to rebound bigger, better, and more inspired than ever before. This is Tornado, stories of those who refuse to choose defeat and instead chose to embrace the storm. Here's your host, Jonathan Nadeau.
Thank you for joining Embrace Your Storm, and this is a special episode for you. I'm excited. It's an honor and privilege. We don't need to get into any kind of introduction to who this is. So, Michael Berryman, thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Michael, first of all, you're going to be at the Tornado Music and Film Festival, and we can't wait to have you there. And it's going to be a great time, and I thank you so much, first of all, for participating with the event.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So there's a lot of things I'd like to talk to you about, because Tornado is all about creativity and overcoming trauma using creativity. And your career has been very interesting, but I'd like to start off with you were born, and you right out of the gate had some hurdles to overcome. Do you mind explaining to the audience? You're born premature, and I'm not even going to try to repeat the ailment that you have. So would you mind explaining what it is?
Absolutely. Backstory real quick. My father was a Navy surgeon attached to the 3rd Marines. After they dropped the bomb in Nagasaki, my father, being a brain surgeon, neurologist, was sent to ground zero, and he was looking at the results, how the bomb affected the human casualties, etc. I remember him sending me a picture of shadows on cement walls that vaporized what used to be human beings.
Wow.
I'm not a big fan of war, armed conflict, etc. I understand history, I understand human nature. Bottom line is, in my opinion, we never should have split the atom or learned how to make those weapons ever. They've served us no purpose whatsoever, in my opinion. Some people say, well, it shortened the war. Yeah. Real quick, I'll just cut to the chase. Don't mess with
I love hearing you talk, so keep going.
Don't mess with my family, friends, or neighbors. If you're not a good person, then just stay away and don't cause grief. If you cause grief, there's going to be repercussions. We're all in this game together. I think it's more important for people to realize that we live on a finite planet. I've studied science my entire life. Bottom line is, we're on a class 9 beautiful blue planet, and it's almost dead. You don't believe me? I don't care. Bottom line is, I've talked to people that worked with Cousteau, physicists, people that know what they're talking about. We need to get our act together.
So with your dad being at the ground zero there, that's where you're kind of leading to.
My father, when my father came back from Nagasaki, I was created, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know that his DNA was radiated, of course, and causes genetic malformations and
no
etc.
kidding.
So I was born premature birth, 1948, about 2 months early. I was underweight. I had my cranium skull did not have the fissures. It was solid, fused. The brain is growing. The skull is not growing. There's going to be pressure building. I would have gone blind, and then it would have killed me. But
Okay.
the ends of my toes and my fingers on my knuckles, the teeth I had in my head were malformed. They had to be removed. I have had dentures since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
My dermis skin, I don't perspire. I cannot perspire. I had
How
from
do you deal with that? Like growing up as a kid, if you can't sweat?
you have to
Like,
not get overheated, or else you get heat stroke. Go to the emergency room, and every time that happens, it shortens your life, and eventually it'll kill you.
wow.
So
That must have been a crazy childhood then.
well, for more than one reason. One of the other situations I had to deal with was that from my orbs, where my eyes are, to my lower jaw, the mandible, that part of my face bones were underdeveloped.
Mm.
So I went to Children's Hospital. Whatever age it is when you're in the first grade, I went to Children's Hospital. My father was a brain surgeon. He ground up and watched. He didn't wrench on my head because he's, ethics. He watched, and they literally, where the fissures would normally be, where the plates grow and expand and then form a skull, like a normal shaped skull and room for the brain, they drew lines and cut on the lines through my skull and made it into plates, like tectonic plates on the earth, for instance. And then they bandaged it all up, and they grew and knit back together. I was very fortunate that I had good vision, and that worked. Over the years, around the age of 30, I've been to a lot of doctors. I had a haircut when they shaved my head for the surgery, for the skull reconstruction surgery. The hair didn't grow back. Okay, no big whoop. The areas under my arms were normally sweat glands, sebaceous glands, and hair follicles. Those were all underdeveloped and not normal. So I would get infections and abscesses. I had major surgery twice where they opened up under my arms for
No kidding.
the entire length, and basically took a sand wedge and, did a big swing and took out as much tissue as possible. And then I had to happen twice in my lifetime. Plus I've had over 300 carvings. Sometimes an abscess would grow inside of the scar tissue, which is lots of fun. Let's see.
Man.
I was working on a film with Brandon Lee called Crow, and I met a gentleman by the name of Paul Newman, who was doing Hudsucker Proxy, and he invited me to meet with a gentleman in Florida for a group. Well, Paul is part of a group called the Bogey Creek Organization, which was Paul Newman, Arnold's General Schwarzkopf, and Arnold Palmer. And so the Newman products and those gentlemen raised money for the Florida Facial Cranial Society, and also other groups and organizations that find parents with children that have facial cranial anomalies. And like the Shriners and other wonderful organizations, they dial in the best surgeons and reconstructive surgeons and invite them to a camp where the children can relax and they can be scrutinized by the physicians. They pay for everything. They even have people house sit their homes so the entire family can be when the child is getting their evaluations. That being said, when I was young, I had issues with society in the sense that I didn't look normal.
Right.
So, catcalls, pointing, teasing, things of that nature. It's never a lot of fun. There's a lot of callous people out there in the world, and people that learn that type of behavior learn from their parents. So when the kids were being mean to me, I would, if the parent was present, I would approach the parent and give them a lecture. And I'm talking about since I was 10 years old. So I would tell the parents, "You're bad parents. These children they don't know boundaries. This is unfair and hurtful behavior. it causes people to have a more of a burden than is required to go on with their life, dealing with issues that are in the local news, for instance. Now, I had a friend who had polio, and his legs had metal braces on the outside because they didn't function very well, and his hands would flex at the wrist in a very awkward manner. He had difficulty using his fingers to open a jar, for instance. So when I saw someone, I remember the first time I saw someone trip him and laugh, and that's when I realized I had a temper.
Huh.
So I went to the principal's office. I was probably in third or fourth grade at the time, and I was told that it's inappropriate to push some kid to the ground and give them a lecture and tell them that they're being cruel and mean. And I said, well, there were grown-ups present and they didn't do anything about it. So I had a very in-your-face attitude. I always have.
Yeah.
Years later, even when I was spending time at the Wolf Sanctuary, the lady that runs it is a Native American, and we got invited to the Navajo Nation in Tuba City. They have an event called the Stars of the Desert. The Stars of the Desert is an awards banquet for parents, and all of the children receive accolades for their achievements during the course of the year. Now, on reservations, for instance, there are issues to deal with, because if you're educated, you understand the history of indigenous nomadic people and how that was a rotten deal all the way around.
Exactly.
And yes, they were there first, and they don't understand. They never believed in boundaries as far as states, et cetera, and land ownership. That being said, there are wonderful, wonderful people in all cultures and societies. Well, when we went to the banquet, we were honored guests. It was a privilege to be there, and we would be on stage, and we would read a 3x5 card that would explain a child's efforts, their name, what they were working on during the course of the year, and if they had any success in those efforts. So a lot of them were, Mary, Tommy, Billy, whomever did good grades. They volunteered for this or for that. And then you read 3, and then the next honored guest will read some more. Well, during that evening, one of the cards that I read said the following: Mary has cerebral palsy. Mary has a difficult time. She's a good student, but she has a difficult time, for instance, eating a bowl of peas with a spoon and not spilling them. It was Mary's intention to make sure that she could accept this challenge and succeed in the dexterity that the doctors and physical therapists were helping her work on with this situation called cerebral palsy. 8 months after her efforts began in this particular task, Mary completed the task of eating the entire bowl of peas with a spoon and not spilling one. Well done. I will tell you honestly, I could barely speak those words in a manner which did not include me sobbing openly.
I hear you.
So my point is, every day is a gift, and blessings should be appreciated, shared, and encouraged. So going back in time to where I was as a child, I had a lot of things to deal with. And back in the late 50s and early 60s, a family, even though my mother was a nurse, my father a world famous neurologist, family therapy and counseling was not something that was looked upon as valuable, or it was embarrassing. Yeah. Problem. I'm sorry, but everybody has issues and tissues. Deal with it. Help one another. So I got through grammar school, high school. When I went to high school, after a couple of weeks as a freshman, I got a phone call one night, and there was somebody from the football team and his buddies laughing and joking in the background saying, quote, "You're a freak. We don't like to look at you. We see you at school. We don't want you in our school. And if you come back to class, you come back to school, we're going to beat you up and deal with you because you're a freak.
Yeah.
So I was not pleased with that conversation. And my parents said, well, you got to go to school. So I went back and carried on. And then until one day, the individual that was on the football team that had made that, he used to walk by me in the hallway, and he would just growl, make weird noises, and look at me weird. One day, he did the proverbial pop the books that you're holding under your arm and then run away and laugh. I left the books on the floor, chased after him, and when he went down the staircase, I took my hand and protected my wrist, and I dove head first, and my wrist caught him on the jaw and knocked him unconscious. And then I had to go to the principal's office and they were complaining about my inappropriate behavior.
Right, you were the troublemaker.
And I told them that I told you about this behavior and you didn't do anything about it because he's on the football team and he can throw and catch a ball, big whoop. So I've always had an in-your-face attitude when it comes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I find out about you. How do people deal with that? Like, here's in the 50s, like you're saying, like here's a teenager kid kind of talking back to adults, telling them, "Hey, where are you guys, man? Like you adults didn't yell at these kids for doing stuff. I need to stand up for." It's kind of crazy.
Well, it's just it's selfish behavior because you're only thinking about yourself, you, the perpetrator. And number two, if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything. And if you see a situation and you don't try to help to one way or another, then you're part of the problem.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, it's true.
Yeah. No, it's very true. You're right. That's so like through high school, obviously, kids were picking on you and stuff. I find this interesting.
It didn't happen every day, but the occasions that it did, it's always painful. It causes not psychosis, but it causes self-worth issues, which can lead to alcoholism and other types of behavior. And if you're not dialed in straight and you understand from where this is coming, I don't believe in turning the other cheek and saying, "Oh, they just don't understand all that wishy-washy baloney." I don't buy into it. All it does is cause it does not allow a door to be opened where this individual has an opportunity that you're offering them to have some humanity and maybe deal with something called ethics. Some people would be receptive to an opportunity when you politely say, "Hey, what do why are you doing this?" If you just approach them right back, like just being angry, that's not the best solution. So these ethical standards, in my opinion, relate to what type of society that you have, as i.e. the individual and the group ethic. So that which separates us a lot of times, I believe, causes harm.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. It's interesting hearing you talk and knowing you came from a family of doctors. Is everyone kind of like, "Michael, come on, why didn't you go down the same path?" It seemed like you took a different path from everyone else in your family, right?
Well, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but the ends of my fingers are my knuckles, and the dexterity required to do procedures, etc., would not be of a benefit for anyone. I did take 2 years of pre-veterinary science. Some of the classes were challenging and difficult, but I did understand that my skill set would not be helpful in any way, shape, or form. I worked in a lot of different fields, from the taxi driver, a lot of odd jobs, whatnot, what have you. And anytime when the warm season came about, like for instance, when I was in college, I wasn't interested in going to Vietnam. I have a lot of regard for our sons and daughters that do serve. I'm an advocate against war. I hate war. And I think the leaders of countries should be in a cage with bricks and bottles, and they can figure it all out.
Let them work. Let them figure it out.
Well, one of the jobs that I had in the Los Angeles area in the mid '80s was a legal courier. We took real important documents to the billionaires, and I'm not exaggerating.
Exactly.
The office of the billionaires that own global corporations. They have private elevators, Armani suit guards, and we were very good and proficient at taking these legal documents. Some went to federal courthouse, some went to other lawyers and accountants, and they were time sensitive. We had people working in the film industry or college students, so you had to be smart enough to know how to do a filing, etc. My point being this: I have been to the billionaire offices in the mid '80s of Fluor. Do you know what Fluor is?
Isn't that a no, I probably don't.
Fluor is a company in Long Beach Harbor. Harbors are international points of travel. International law, Geneva Convention, is, from my understanding, then they do not have to comply. It's my understanding that it's a chemical company. They make chemicals. Some of the chemicals are in compounds and situations that might harm individuals, and I'm trying to be cautious of to ever hear this. They won't sue me. It's my understanding, it's been brought to my attention that, well, they do whatever they want. My point is, there's Monsanto, other major corporations. I've been to the offices of the billionaires. And I'm polite. I did my job. I gave them papers, waited, got them signed, took the papers, and delivered them to where they needed to be. Every office I went to for the CEOs and the owners of global corporations had a map. They all had the same map. It was a white rectangle, about 4.5 feet wide, about 3 feet vertical. On the white was black lines. The black lines were the land masses where land masses meet water. They're called continents. The interior of every land mass on that map had shapes, and the shapes were not the same shape of a state, of a country, or a province. They were like pieces of a puzzle, some clustered together small, some larger, and they didn't equate to anything other than below the map of the world is a rectangle, from left to right, a rectangle, thin, white on the left, dark red on the right. Panning from left to right, it would change color, light pink, darker pink, all the way to dark red. Below the rectangle, below the map of the continents, were lines coming down, descending, left to right. There were names of the top global corporations that own the earth. The colors of the corresponded to the names that were coming from the descending lines. So it was like a puzzle with white, dark red, shades of in between all over these land masses. One day, I asked one of the gentlemen what these maps meant. And he said, well, what does it say on the top of the map? And I said, it says, quote, corporate global zones of control. Now, see, I like to ask a question when I already know the answer. And he told me, quote, son, we start wars. We sell weapons to both sides of wars. Any country. We do whatever we want. We own the earth.
Wow.
Thank you for being honest.
Wow. That
And
was
then I said, by the way, I'm
that
not
was
an
a lesson
employee.
learned, huh?
Well, I told him, I said, I'm not an employee, so you can't fire me. But if I may speak honestly, would that be okay? And he said, sure. And I told him what I thought. And then I left.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
so what is the point of all this? Just as people with physical, mental, emotional situations, nobody's perfect.
Right.
And
Right.
you can be perfect today and slip on a bar of soap in the shower and be gimped. So when you meet people that are powerful, wealthy, and looking down at you,
Mm.
occasionally they need they could benefit from some honesty. And one of my favorites
You're
is
very
this:
right.
you might look at me with disdain or indifference, but know this, sir or madam, you might be on the top of the heap right now, but there will come a time when your time is short. Even if you're in a wealthy hospital room, you own the hospital, you have servants waiting on you, whatever you want, they keep you comfortable. Before you check out, you're going to have an evaluation of how you lived your life in an ethical or humane or not manner. So all the times you think you're winning, you're building up karma, you're building up points. I will go peacefully into that good night, sir. Perhaps you can do the same. Have a good day.
Man, that was really good, Michael.
Well, that's the kind of AHIM.
Yeah, that I don't even know how to follow up with that now. If I still have a few more moments every time, the other, again, interesting.
We can roll a little longer.
All right, cool. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, so here, hearing all this, then, after high school, it seems like you went to school, and I mean, I know you went to veterinary, you were doing the veterinary thing, but I think you also ended up doing like a, not a liberal arts, but like an art sort of like degree, or so, like an art appreciation degree or something like that. Is that, and then you ended up kind of opening a store with a friend of yours, right? Like a, not a house decorating store, but it was like a, something along those lines, right?
You're close. What after I went to college and I took some science, took botany and zoology and English lit and history and sociology, and there were a lot of art classes. I studied art history. I have a minor in art history. Okay. It just means that I could tell you the difference between a Gauguin and a Klee or a Picasso or et cetera, et cetera. So, and I also love music. I don't play an instrument. I can sing pretty well. I had the opportunity to see some really cool concerts from 1966 to 1972 when I was in the middle of the state of California. One night it was the Jefferson Airplane at a psychedelic pillow concert in the gymnasium. That was awesome.
I believe it.
Back then we were burning incense and smoking pot, and it was wonderful. Absolutely. It's funny how now there's medicinal marijuana that people understand that science is actually a real thing. It helps with seizures. There's so many ways to understand. My father told me years and years and years ago, he said they should not eradicate opium, in his opinion. Why? I asked. He said because it has many wonderful ways of helping people.
Wow.
People that have abuse issues and problems, they're always going to be among us. If you take away one substance, they'll find something else. I'm not a big fan of methamphetamine. I think that's just, you can see, we call them tweakers. It's a very sad, debilitating condition. Not having national health care coverage for everyone, in my opinion, it's a crime. I won't say it's a sin because I'm an altar boy survivor and I don't buy into sin. There's inappropriate behavior, and there's repercussions to actions that you
Man,
can make.
you just said something in passing. I don't want to dive into that anyways, but my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I remember when I did a film in Rome, I actually went with a friend of mine she was one of our stars. She was a high fashion model in Italy. She played her name was Sheba. Anyway, we went to, I went to the Vatican, long and short of it, and I know their history. I've talked to nuns and priests and brothers that left the organization, and I know why.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain to you why.
Yeah.
They always want more money. I'm not a big fan of organized religion. Be that as it may, I went on a tour, and when we got down into the catacombs, I had a few historically precise questions. And I guess I bummed out a lot of people on their vacation because I reminded them of inappropriate behavior, and I knew people that were no longer brothers or priests or nuns, and I know why. And I was asked to leave, so I told the Vatican guard, I says, if you touch me on my shoulder, I will leave. I'm leaving right now. You work for a very evil institution. If you don't like it and you're hearing this, do your history and learn something. You know, the carpenter was a pretty groovy guy, you know. He was not a wimp, you know. But there's two things that I've had philosophy decision about, which is what causes a lot of pain and suffering. The two of the biggest ones are this. If you draw a line in the dirt and you say, don't cross that line, blood leaves people's bodies. If you say, my God is better than your God, blood leaves people's bodies. Those two concepts need to be antiquated and put to rest. When you are pointing your finger at something, take your thumb and push it toward the sky.
Man.
When you are observing that position of your hand, thumb, and forefinger, the thumb, in my opinion, represents grace. Your ability to be receptive to positive energy, inspiration. What you do is the finger pointing out toward the world and the rest of humanity. Those are your actions. But there's three fingers pointing back to you. They're in the palm of your hand. That's the payback that you get. What would you like to receive? It's just a thought.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said that, because hearing you talk, I'm like, I'm surprised you didn't take philosophy in school. I could have seen you going down those roads for sure.
Well, when I left college in 1972, I was very poor. I didn't have a degree. I had managed restaurants. I was even a meat cutter, butcher, taxi driver, legal courier, et cetera, would cover a donut shop for a friend of mine when they went on vacation.
That's
we
cool.
would make donuts all night. But when the sun came up in the morning, you're making the apple fritters. And then, yes, of course, ladies and gentlemen that wear the shield and swear the oath to protect us would stop by. And yes, they do take donuts with them. It's a fact. So when I left college, I put myself through college. I worked odd jobs. I didn't know what I was going to do when I left college. In my book, in my memoir, I explained that whole process of what happened, and I'll let you know when the book's ready.
We'll talk more about that in a minute.
I wound up to answer your earlier question. I met a friend in Venice Beach who rented an old house that built probably in 1930 or 40, right on the beach on West Washington Boulevard. Now it's very hoity-toity expensive.
Yeah.
There's a place called the Gallimaufry, which is an antique store, and the people that owned the store were very, very, very nice. They were our neighbors, and we just had the local people that did artwork. I think we rented the little house for $70 a month, and And we had some small house plants, and then the local artists would put their stuff in their shop, and we would get a percentage if somebody came in and bought it.
Yeah.
We were only in business for 6 months, and we didn't make any money, but we met some cool people. Some of the cool people we met were the owners of the Gallimaufry, and the wife had a father who happened to be George Powell. And I met George Powell one night, and he said, "Your face is interesting. You could be a character actor in my movie, Doc Savvy's." And I said, "I'm not an actor." Well, first he asked me, "Are you an actor?" And I said, "No, man. I studied some art. I want to go to Homestead in Alaska and be out in nature." And he said, "Well, here's my card. I got a 2-day part. I'll get you in the union, pay you $400. And if anybody asks you, tell them I discovered you." And I said, "You're George Powell. You did War of the Worlds and a few other." And he says, "Just call my office." So that's how that happened.
Yeah, I'm a person who doesn't believe anything happens on accident, and like it's just very cool that he walked into your. It sounds like.
Well, we were in his store.
Oh, okay.
We went to his daughter's store. They had a special invitation sale for expensive antiquities. There was, Bentleys and Rolls Royces and chauffeurs, and so we brought over some of our plants and stuff to make the place look kind of,
Okay.
And then again, we were just hanging around. We had, here, have a glass of wine and a biscuit, and so we're just hanging out, having a good time, and that's how I met George.
That's funny. And then from what I heard, you did that part, and then the next part you got was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and everything else kind of took off from there, right?
That is correct.
That's crazy.
That is correct.
I know. It seems
the only
like
reason I did Cuckoo's Nest is because George's casting director was Fenton Feinberg, who were casting for Cuckoo's Nest. Otherwise, I didn't have an agent, didn't have headshots. They just happened to know me from that George's movie. Could have been any other casting director, but it just happened to be them. And there's a reason why that happened, but you have to read my book, because something happened before.
Exactly.
Something happened before I came back to California that kind of put karma in motion, and I explain that in my book.
There's one last thing I want to mention before we talk about the book that I liked, and you actually said this at one point during the interview too. You said, when I heard you talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you said, "I asked so many questions," like when you're on the set. I thought that you seem like a person, you just want to learn. Like you want to know stuff and understand it. And I find it interesting. You're like, you don't hear new actors or say, you're like, "Oh, I need to learn all this stuff. I had to ask someone." You were just like, "I asked everyone all these questions." And I found that it's just interesting that you do that.
Well, it's a process. When you get something called a call sheet, it has everybody who's working on the film, and you look, and there's a couple hundred people. There's drivers, there's caterers, there's wardrobe and makeup and electricians and lighting and camera, and a whole lot of people getting paid to do something, and they're all very skilled and talented. So if you're working with actors that are not professional, they turn into an ego child, and I don't want green jelly beans in the bowl in my,
Yeah.
They're not rock stars, and I've worked with rock stars that should have behaved themselves, and others that were so professional. It was amazing. So when I asked Milos Forman one day, I walked up to him and I said, "What do I need to know?" And he walked me over to the camera, and he puffed on his pipe, and he said, "Look at the camera. I'm looking at the lens," and he says, "Have a love affair with a glass." And then he handed me a book on cinematography, and I studied it. I was there 127 days, every day, 6 days a week. I was on the set on my days off, so I could watch, observe, and ask questions.
Wow, no kidding. That's cool.
Yeah, that's how can you do a scene over and over and over and over and over again? Because there's different angles.
Huh.
Close up on this person, not you, but they want you there so the person can react to you. And I started realizing, I used to invite friends to the set, and after 3 or 4 days of that, they go, "I think I have something else to do." Because these are long hours. A lot of hurry up and wait is one of
definitely a lot of that.
Scenes.
So now you have this book coming out, Michael. Like you've been working on it. Like, what's it going to kind of be about? How long is the book going to be? Kind of tease the audience with this.
Well, I have my I just printed today my 12 chapter summaries with the epilogue and introduction with my co-writer.
Nice.
It'll be around 200 pages, I suppose. We're getting the numbers up on TikTok. If anybody hears this, please go to TikTok and
we'll put links to everything.
Check out my videos and help the numbers get up there. Because it's writing it is one thing, getting it out and about. There's also a business plan, so it's, there's a lot to it. But basically, it's my life story from when I was born until almost recently.
Okay, that's very cool. Now, do you have like an ETA of when the book might actually be out, or you're still working up to that point?
Well, that's a good question. I want to post on social media, on Facebook, especially on TikTok. And then I have friends that do podcast radio stations, even like yourself. So I'm hoping by this fall is what I'm hoping for. But, I'll know more as the weeks go by.
Okay, very cool, awesome. Is there anything else you got going on that you're working on, that you can talk about anyways, that you want to mention or whatever?
Well, yeah, I took a lot of classes in public speaking, and one of the things that I learned from my professor was you never want to say in conclusion. So to sum up, actually, what I will say is basically a philosophical in the sense that, for instance, when I see interviews and people, they have an agenda. Yeah, you want to talk about something, a film that you did or this or that, because you're promoting it. You want people to go out and see it, so the investors can make their money back, not because they're greedy, but because they put up the money to do something creative, and we want them to do well, so they can tell another story. We tell stories. Songs tell stories, shares our common values and humanities. So what I would like to just leave as my gift back for saying thank you for allowing us to have this conversation and forum is that, folks, sometimes some days are easier than others. Some efforts are discouraging, and some are more surprisingly in the most positive way than you could imagine. So I'll leave it at this. Be lazy. It's a beauty secret in more than one way. If you don't want a lot of wrinkles, then don't frown. Be lazy. It takes 27 muscles to frown. It only takes 3 to smile.
That is pretty awesome, Michael. Again, you kind of left me speechless twice in a row here, so that's a good way to end. I appreciate you a lot, and I don't forget that he's going to be at the Tornado Music and Film Festival August 27th. You're going to be able to shake hands with him, take pictures. You're going to be able to meet the Michael Berryman. So, Michael, again, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this, and we're looking forward to seeing you in a less than 2 months.
Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure. All my best to you and yours and everyone listening. Make tomorrow a better day. If you're having a tough time, go talk to a cat or a dog, watch a bird or something in nature. It'll always be soothing for you. And if you ever have a question, you can ask your dog or your cat, what do I do? And they'll look at you and go woof or meow, flick their tail and say, you're an idiot. Sometimes they're right.
Yeah, seriously. Well, Michael, again, thank you so much. And everyone, don't forget to embrace your storm.
Take care, folks.
Tornado with Jonathan Nadeau. If you haven't yet, please subscribe now so you're first to hear new episodes with more stories of inspiration about the highs and lows of life and how embracing the storm is so much more fulfilling of a life than being crushed by the weight of the world. And until then, we hope you're inspired to do something, whether it's creating, participating, or learning, whatever leads you to your personal passion.